Hello, welcome back to the Great Canadian Bagel. Today we have the difference of a year. Now, before we get into the main video, let me just once again shout out all the members of the channel, and if you would like to help support the channel, by all means go join below. We have 3 different tiers, and every single tier is greatly appreciated. If you don't have the money to spend on membership, just do the regular YouTube things, like, share, subscribe, comment below. All of those things greatly help the channel, and I greatly appreciate them, so please do them. But let us begin. So, just a year ago, leading into this weekend, the weekend leading in, or as the video has come out, this video is coming out on a Monday, obviously, so this weekend that had just occurred, last year was during the Conservative Party convention where they nominated Pierre Poilievre to be the leader of the Conservative Party. Now, going into this convention in September 9th, 2022, there was no doubt in anyone's mind on that Friday, at least no doubt in any serious person's mind, that Pierre Poilievre was not going to win. So, from the perspective of the Conservative Party, on September 9th, 2022, this is the national deck of cards. This is what they are looking at politically, and this is what the seats are looking like. We have an NDP that's only just lost 1 seat and is overall up about a half point of popular vote. The Liberals are roughly treading water, and the Conservative vote is just slightly more efficient than it was under O'Toole just a year prior, leading to 11 seat gains, but many of them, such as Windsor-Tecumseh, Winnipeg South, Nickel Belt, West Vancouver, etc., are really marginal. Of the 11 seats projected to be winnable on September 9th, 2022, 8 of them are highly marginal, leaving only 2 new seats that are somewhat comfortable wins for the Conservatives. Now, longtime viewers of the channel, which is apparently not many, or not apparently, but is not as many as there used to be because we have way more viewers now. We got way more subscribers. But longtime viewers of the channel will remember last August, when I ran these numbers, the Conservatives had a slight seat lead. Well, since the US election last fall, I have recalibrated the model, and that seems to be erroneous, which also made sense because my US model was slightly erroneous seat projection-wise. So we've improved since then, and the new improved model did very well in Alberta, so I think it probably stands pretty well. Okay, so this is what we're looking at. This is the environment we see in September 9th last year. Now, in this environment, in September 9th of last year, people, politicos, journalists, election analysts, you could say, such as myself, are all looking at this and wondering, how does Poilievre win? The standard conventional logic to win a federal election for the Conservatives is they need to win the GTA. And to a lesser extent, maybe get a breakthrough in Quebec. Though breakthroughs in Quebec are pretty rare. It seems to be about once every 30, 40 years kind of affair. That doesn't leave much room. It's often thought that some of these smaller towns like the Londons, Hamiltons, a lot of central Vancouver these days, or much of Atlantic Canada, aren't particularly competitive, in that for the Conservatives to win a majority through these regions, they would need to utterly dominate them to the point where it's almost a farce. yes, by going through some small city Ontario, through Vancouver, through coastal BC a little bit, like North Island, Powell River area, and some competitive Atlantic Canada ridings, they could maybe get up to 140, 150. But to get their vaunted majority, they need to win places like Brampton and Mississauga. That is the conventional logic when Poilievre takes office as leader of the Conservative Party. And it's why, for the first little bit when he's in office, if you read the news at the time, or you recall it, or you saw the rhetoric going about, that he wasn't in a position to win, that a Conservative majority was impossible. This was a very common line of rhetoric people would continue to say over and over. They need to break through the GTA. They need to break through with liberal conservative swing voters in particular. That a lot of these other regions are not ripe for the picking. There's not a lot of voters who can come over. How many NDP conservative swing voters even are there? Not many, they would assert. Well, we're now a year later. What is the map looking like now? As you'll notice, substantially bluer. Now, just to head off the cart before the horse, there has been basically no movement in Quebec. And in the GTA, yes, we are seeing some seat gains. They have picked up, if you want to count Oakville, Burlington area, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 seats in the GTA. That's actually not even enough seats for them to lose their majority. They would still have 171 of 338. And in the new redistricting, they would likely, I haven't run the numbers on it, but they would likely keep all of those seats in the GTA and actually gain more seats in the rest of Canada. What you're really seeing here, and it's really obvious right off the bat, is the Poilievre strategy since becoming leader is basically win everywhere except Quebec all at once. Now, if we put these side by side, it'll be a bit easier to see what I mean by that. So let's just get off the superficial comparisons at the beginning. The Liberals have lost about 1.8 points year over year. The NDP have lost about 1.9 points year over year. The Greens have gained about 0.2. The Bloc has gained about 0.4. And the Conservatives have gained 5.8. But the regionalities, starting, let's say, west to east, no, let's go east to west, are the most shocking. First, Newfoundland. Newfoundland has historically been one of the most liberal provinces in the country. And now we are at a point, in a way, sort of interestingly, because historically, St. John's has actually been the most conservative part of Newfoundland, at least federally. And now we are looking at almost the opposite. All of rural Newfoundland is looking more conservative than St. John's, and it's all going blue. In my home of Nova Scotia, we're seeing Cape Breton, Sydney, Victoria, and Central Nova all flipping blue, and that Central Nova flipping blue without the particularities of a certain candidate who someone might say could possibly maybe be running. He's very awfully politically active for someone who's not involved in politics, isn't he? New Brunswick, well, we have Fredericton and St. John's Rosse flipping conservative. Madawaska Restigouche is much closer. And Beausejour and Moncton, though hard to see on either of these maps at this scaling, while not competitive by any means, are closer, meaningfully closer. In PEI, Malpeque is now a pickup and Egmont is competitive. All told, the Conservatives in the span of a year are now competitive in every single province in Atlantic Canada, have more potential seat pickups in most provinces. We have Egmont, Kings Hants, Madawaska, Restigouche are all potential pickups, and they have already picked up 10 seats. 10 in Atlantic Canada. Of 32, they picked up a third of the seats in Atlantic Canada in just the space of 1 year. Shocking. Then we go into Ontario, and what do we see? Yes, we have those 12 seats that they've picked up in the GTA. Sure. But then you look at the rest of Ontario. They've picked up 2 in Niagara, 2 in London, 2 more in Kitchener, 2 more in Hamilton. Right there, that's 8 seats. And in all of those regions, they have one, or in small city Ontario, Guelph, Kitchener Centre, Waterloo, not Kitchener Centre, Windsor West, London North Centre, Hamilton Mountain, are all competitive ridings for the Conservatives right now. They could reasonably pick up 5 more seats in southern urban Ontario. Nearly a clean sweep. Only Hamilton Centre stands out, steadfast in the wind of the Conservative tide in southern Ontario. In northern Ontario, the picture's not any better for the various left-wing parties. Every single riding has flipped. Not only are they now looking at Thunder Bay, Rainy River, Nickel Belt, and what are the other two? Sorry, my memory is failing me. Nipissing-Timiskaming, and Sault Ste. Marie. Not only are those 4 safer and even harder for the various opposition parties to take back, but we are seeing Sudbury, Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing, Thunder Bay, Superior North, Timmins, James Bay, all flip to a total rout of every single rural area, almost every single small urban area, with just the most urban parts of Toronto and Ottawa holding firm. And notably, here, Brampton and Mississauga, the 2 places that the people who constantly said last year the Conservatives have no path without the GTA, the 2 areas they think the Conservatives needed to win, haven't flipped. They got closer, perhaps, sure. Not a single flip. And the vaunted Mississauga Lake Shore, which so much tears and ink was spilt over in November of 2022, is no closer now than it was then. In the actual by-election, that is. There is no need for these. Now, winning them is always good. There's never a bad thing about winning more ridings. But the path never needed these ridings. Moving into Manitoba, we can quite see an interesting little phenomenon has occurred. Now, there's some potential possibilities that the provincial election is messing around with this, which is going to be ongoing as this video is live, I think, or is it the end of the month? Anyways, what we see here is the Liberals have actually gained a lot of ground in Winnipeg. 2 competitive seats and 1 lost seat for the Liberals now all turn into very safe seats. But at the same time that the Liberals have made Winnipeg safer, Churchill, Kiwanuketuk, Aski, Elmwood, Transcona, and Winnipeg Centre are all dramatically weakened for the NDP, and it's not entirely implausible that in 2024 or 2025, if trends continue, the cliche phrase of this line of work, they could be wiped out of Manitoba. 0 seats. Shocking how much of a pivot has occurred in Manitoba in a year. And I think there is some inkling to say that this growth of Liberals might actually be real. The Winnipeg South Centre by-election went exactly how we thought this would if this modeling is correct. Same thing with Portage-Lisgar. The Liberals are up or slightly flat in Portage-Lisgar, and the NDP has collapsed in both regions. It doesn't take much for this collapse to turn into total seat loss in Manitoba. Saskatchewan? Saskatchewan. It's pretty steadfast these days. There's only the north is somewhat iffy on the redrawing, for the Conservatives, that is. But otherwise, the rest of the province is pretty steadfast. It's a pretty conservative province, voting-wise. Into Alberta, not only is central Calgary safer, but the Liberal seat in Calgary Skyview, which looked bulletproof last year, is now almost the opposite. Bulletproof gone. Edmonton Centre, same deal. The bare touch of the NDP holding on to Edmonton Griesbach evaporated. It's like it never happened. The territories? None of it's almost flipped. Yukon couldn't be safer, really. In Northwest Territories has went the opposite direction, from being about a 7-point Liberal lead to about a 7-point Conservative lead. The time span of a year. BC? What are we looking at? We're looking at nearly total collapse of the NDP in BC, and to a lesser extent, total collapse of the Liberals in BC. Just total collapse of everybody. This performance right here we're seeing on this map would be nearly the best performance since 2000, when the Reform Party, led by a BC native Stockwell Day, dominated BC in the election. This would be a stronger performance for the right in Canada. Not only are you seeing places like Delta, Richmond Centre, Stevenston, Richmond East, Cloverdale, Langley City, Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam. Not only are you seeing these flip from the Liberal to the Conservatives, but Fleetwood, Port Kells, Burnaby, North Seymour, North Vancouver, Vancouver, Quandra are all competitive. This is very dramatic. Singh himself is projected to comfortably, albeit closely, lose his seat now in Burnaby South. Peter Julian in New Westminster Burnaby, not looking great with only a 7-point margin in his riding, though still safe enough. Port Moody Coquitlam, gone, never coming back. Well, maybe, but for dramatic flair, not coming back. Even all the way down to Esquimalt, Saanich Sooke. Flip Conservative. Not what you would rarely expect from Vancouver, Victoria suburbs, but even Victoria itself isn't safe. Now, this time it's to the Greens and not to the NDP, or to the Conservatives, but that's not much comfort to the NDP. The rest of Vancouver Island, Cowichan, Malahat, Langford, Courtenay, Alberni, Nanaimo, Ladysmith, North Island, Powell River, might as well be gone. It's as solid as you would expect in places like Cumberland, Colchester, or Central Calgary. Places that you wouldn't expect to ever go anything but conservative now. The span of 1 year. 1 year. Now, this provokes the most obvious question. Will this continue? And to that I say, I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? If I could tell you what's going to happen 2 years from now, perfectly and there was no doubt, no changes, people would pay me a lot more money to do this. It wouldn't be the audience and the ads funding me. It would be political parties paying me to be an advisor. Maybe one day I'll be there, but for now I'm not. Though we can strive for perfection every day. But what does this say? Well, it tells us the strategy of Poilievre very clearly. Now, the previous leader, Erin O'Toole's strategy was very much, let's win the GTA and maybe gain some seats in Quebec. Screw the rest of Canada. There's not enough seats there to matter. We have to win almost all of the rest of Canada for it to matter, for a majority. And Poilievre's like, dang, nabbit, I'm going to win everything everywhere all at once. Not only are we looking at 16 seat gain in BC, 3 in Alberta, 10 in Atlantic Canada, but 37 in Ontario, 25 outside of the GTA. Effectively, every possible seat not in Alberta, or not in the GTA and not in Ottawa, is either flipped Conservative in Ontario or is on the precipice of flipping Conservative. If some of the polls, like the most recent Ledger poll that had the Conservatives at 43 to 28 in Ontario occurred, we could reasonably expect every single riding not in the most urban parts of Ontario to be blue. The 416 will have red in it. Maybe Brampton too. Ottawa. Sure. Every other possible riding? No. That's what happens can happen in 1 year. 1 year. Now, it doesn't sound like much, but this really, truly, genuinely is a shocking development. Why can't I find the hide button? There we go. So, let us recap here. The NDP, the Liberals, the People's Party, Other have all lost ground to the Conservatives. Now, Other and People's Party, I could see those voters having actually switched. And actually, maybe some of these NDP voters have actually switched. The Liberals, I actually would hazard to guess more that they have just left the electorate. Maybe some have went NDP, offsetting some of these NDP losses to the Conservatives even. Some might have went to the Greens, because the Greens are up about 2.2 since last year. And we're really seeing an actually very strong thing here. A really big deal here. Notice who has lost proportionally the most. The NDP. They've lost more vote share in absolute terms, not even considering relative terms, even when they should theoretically be gaining from the Liberals' losses. But they've also lost the most seats in relative terms. We zoom in just on this map, the map of September 9th, 2023. Going into the long weekend of the Conservative Party convention. It's not the long weekend. But anyways, well, I mean, it's a long weekend if you're going there. We're at 12 NDP seats. Singh himself is gone. Churchill, Kiewinettook, Askey, Nunavut, Elmwood, Transcona, Windsor West are all in danger of being lost. And if trends continue just 2 more years, all will be lost for the NDP. Burnaby South Westminster? No, sorry, New Westminster, Burnaby? Confused writings there. Victoria? Even Hamilton Centre are not bulletproof for the NDP here. Now, Hamilton Centre isn't that much at risk, but is that much of a comfort when there is no path forward here for the NDP? Now, it's not something I would have predicted last year when the CASA, or 2 years ago when the CASA was signed. No, sorry, it was last year. Last year when the CASA was signed. And I definitely wouldn't have predicted it after Poilievre took office. But the combination of the CASA and Poilievre's strategy clearly to go to the throat of the NDP is catastrophic for the NDP. Singh is flailing like an absolute clown. He has no idea how to land a punch. He doesn't know how to defend himself. It really, truly looks like you put a featherweight up against an ultra heavyweight boxer. There is nothing to be done here. It's just one guy getting punched in the face again and again and again and again, and he can't land a single punch back. The question really stands. Does the NDP continue with Singh sailing their ship straight into a cliff? Or do they do something different? Because if nothing changes by 2025, there might not be much of a ship left for a new captain to helm. This CASA has done nothing for the NDP. They have gotten basically no useful, valuable, quantifiable policies. All they got is a measly dental care bill, which the Liberals very well might have done anyways. You can't prove they wouldn't have. And even if you want to argue they wouldn't have, it's still very measly and not much of a real program. It's only barely a dental program in the sense that it affects dentistry. It's not national health insurance or dental insurance. It's not Medicare for dental care, if you even want to call that. It's just checks to cover the cost of dentistry for poor Canadians. Now, you can argue the merits below in the comments of this program, but it's a very subtle, very small program that I don't think a single NDP voter is satisfied with. But at the same time that Singh has shackled his horse to a boat that is sinking, which is the Trudeau administration, for basically nothing, for a rotten apple for his horse. He is then also criticized the hand feeding his horse of every manner of name, of every manner of insult he can conjure, attacking the very base of the foundation of his party and the very path he can grow it. He has gained absolutely nothing for his party but the revealing to himself, to the world, that he is a clueless buffoon who has never been fit to lead a political party. The absolute collapse of the NDP seems potentially imminent. Now, they have recovered in the past from such terrible results, such as 1993's, but 9 seats in 1993 is a much better performance than the potential 8 they might have now. Or, if all goes bad, the NDP could walk away with 4. If some ledger polls are correct. there isn't much left in the realm that the NDP can hold. It is hard to imagine a party more lost than the NDP right now. But all sails not well in the Liberals. We are seeing here a Liberal Party floundering, weakened, with severe, significant negatives on the economy, cost of living, housing. Just recently we found out that we had negative GDP growth in Q2. These are not the wins this floundering ship needed. There are dozens of seats still at risk to the Conservatives. We have the 4 I've mentioned already in Southern Ontario, but we have 4 more in BC. We have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more in the GTA. That's 16 seats right there. 1 more in Ottawa, 1 more in Prince Edward Island, 2 in Quebec that are at risk to losing to the Bloc. And now we're at 20 seats that they're only winning by 5 points or less. Sorry, by less than 5 points. 20. An 86-seat result seems plausible to a 201 Conservative finish. If we throw in those 8 NDP seats they might, or well, the 7 NDP seats they might lose to the Liberal or to the Conservatives, we could see 208 on the scoreboard for the Conservatives without gaining a single seat in Quebec. An total and utter domination of English Canada. Almost every riding would be at risk. If we extend forward and then we include ridings such as Elizabeth May's herself, or some of the other ridings that are less than 10-point leads, in the absolute best case scenario. By all means, this is not likely, and don't count on it, and don't plan on it, but for sake of argument, we could see another 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 seats. Yes, 19 more seats. 86? More like 67. Wow. 4 of which go to the Bloc, putting the Bloc to now 42 seats. 15 of which go to the Conservatives, putting their 208 we just mentioned to 223. At that point, at that phase, at 223, plus 1 if we count that May seat, so let's say 224. This would now be the most seats ever won by a party to win an election in Canada. If we ignore Quebec, it would necessitate the largest landslide victory in Canadian history, likely close to 60 to 70%, in the realm of 60% of English Canada will have voted Conservative in this most worst case scenario that is seemingly opening up. Am I to say here that it is going to happen? No. No, by all means, do not take this video as saying a total Conservative landslide victory is going to happen. But by the same token, we get here and we look at this map here, and we look at some of the ridings that were not in play on this map. Central Nova. Neopen. Avalon. Calgary Skyview, to name 4. Those ridings that were not in play, some of which have already flipped. Some of them are deeply in play. And it continues across the entire country. Some of these seats, Thunder Bay Superior North, 7% margin. What's a 7% margin now? Sackville, Preston, Chesapeake. Is that to say that we are going to see the same thing happen again? No. Again, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, by the perspective of this to here, this projection here to this hypothetical 224 conservative seats is as reasonable as this as this 183 seats was to someone sitting back on September 9th, 2022, when Poilievre first took office. We could very well be right at the moment where we are seeing the next major landslide in Canadian history. It's in the making. Trudeau showing no signs of doing anything to change this. Singh is showing all signs that he's willing to go down with his ship for no apparent reason. It seems like we are about to see something eclipse Diefenbaker in English Canada. That is the level of domination which seems to be in the cards. Now, Trudeau has a chance to fix this. He has options to do something. All is not lost for the Liberal Party. All they need to do to ward off the worst excesses of the Conservative domination in 2025 would be to have positive movement on housing and positive movement on cost of living. If he can have, Trudeau that is, one full year before 2025's election where housing price growth is below inflation or even better yet, negative, and one full year where GDP per capita is growing at faster than inflation rates, he could very well hold his back in Vancouver, the GTA, maybe some of these small town or smaller cities in Ontario, maybe in Atlantic Canada. And we maybe could see just a minor Conservative minority, or even worse for the Conservatives, or better for Trudeau, a liberal minority. A weakened one, perhaps, but it's not out of the cards. But every day we go, and the policies that are dragging Trudeau down, that are dragging Canada down, are left unchanged, unaltered. This window, this glimpse of revival fades. Come this time next year, there'll be almost no time left for Trudeau to change course and for it to matter. 2024, including up to December, is really his last hope. If he makes no actions by then, he has resigned himself to sink and challenge the gods on whether he will outperform Kim Campbell in 1993.